Okay, so one of the notions we're going to talk about is how do we avoid the situation where the church becomes utilized for just a few short hours a week. I remember some years ago. Oh, turn it on. Oh, okay, that's yeah. How novel. Yeah, thank you. Uh, so how do we avoid that? I was here about 7 or 8 years ago on the west coast of Florida, touring a building 7 or 8 years ago, and I had a church tour us through the building, and we asked them, does your building get used? I mean, are you guys using? Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. We have so much going on here. Well, what kind of things do you do here? Well, on Tuesday nights we have a group come in and they use this classroom over here. They've got a recovery group that comes in. On Wednesday nights, all the kids come in and we have kids' activities and so forth. And on every other Thursday morning, we have the gals come in and have a luncheon together, a brunch type thing, and a teaching time. And every other Friday, opposite that, we have the men come in for a breakfast. And then on Sundays, of course, we have 4 or 5 hours of really concentrated use. And then we, yeah. So in other words, for about 11 or 12 hours a week, you intensively use the building. Yes. I can tell you if that was a business, it would be an utter failure. The building is sitting unoccupied the vast majority of time, and that's true of the majority of churches that we see in America today. They are underutilized. There is potential to be able to use those buildings. So we are encouraging this notion of how do we increase the level of activity. Honestly, we learned this from a group down in Chula Vista, California, a group that spent 4 years going through the community approval process, and in California that is rigorous. Everybody here thinks you're in the toughest community in the world. I can tell you, if you haven't worked in Southern California, you haven't seen anything yet. 4 years of getting approval on this project for a piece of land that was approved, pre-approved for a church. But what California does is California will ask you to employ community betterments. So part of your project may be building bike paths across town. And you're not going to build your building until you get the money to go build the bike paths across town. So 4 years they spent trying to get through their process. They got it, and immediately upon entering their building, within the first week, they had people knocking on the door saying, hey, can we hold our cheer class here? Can we hold our taekwondo class here? Can we do this? Can we do that? And their answer was, like most churches, well, we're not really equipped to open up the building in that way. They didn't have a budget to draw from. When people come in to use the building, there's going to be things that are going to impact their budget. Certainly, turning the lights on even, or restroom cleanup and so on and so forth. They didn't have anybody to lock and unlock the doors, so for 4 or 5 months, their answer was, we just don't know how to really make this happen. Thanks for inquiring, but no thanks, we can't do this. Finally, one summer, they got a couple of interns, and they said, your job is to manage schedule, your job is to lock and unlock doors. Within a year, they had 1,200 people a week coming in for non-church related activities. This is great. It was a quid pro quo, by the way. They charged them. So part of the class fee was a building use fee. They said the quid pro quo aspect of it was actually an advantage to them. It created an atmosphere where they felt like they weren't getting something doled out to them and had expectations laid on them. They liked that aspect, the people that were using the building. So there was a fee, and it covered their costs. They said that within a short period of time, too, we realized that we weren't really forming connection to them. So young moms that were coming in for a yoga exercise class were invited by some older members of the congregation to a child development class, how to raise kids on a Saturday morning. Well, the class that was offered to them from the church on Saturday mornings was a class that was intended to reach into the lives of these young parents and train them in the way that a child should go. And they forged relationship. They forged a trust relationship first and foremost. That led to further relationship, which led eventually to, hey, you ought to stop by on Sunday morning and check us out. That was a connecting class. So they figured out pretty quickly how to do that. Today, they continue to do the same thing. They have become a de facto community center. That's what their building is. It is the hub of their community in Chula Vista. They're on their second phase, 7 years into the project. They're now building onto that because their church has grown and their community needs have grown. So this is part of that kind of thinking. We've learned this from groups that are doing this well.